So now I would like to invite Lena Azul, one of our mentors and tonight's featured interviewee. Lena is the Chief of Staff at Metrolinx, and she holds a BA in English from LANPS. Welcome, Lena.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for the kind welcome and congratulations to Kashmira as well. It's a small world of women who are, running ahead in this whole in work environment. So thank you very much.
And thank you for agreeing to speak with us this evening. And Lena is going to take us through what I think many of our mentors experiences with which they will identify. So Lena, let's start with your experience as a student at York. What did you do while you were here? And tell us a little bit about your York experience.
So I think, everyone has a very different experience going into York. Mine personally was, I'm going to kind of take a step back and before even getting to York. So I am an immigrant to this country. I come from, my parents are from the Middle East and then went to Europe and had me and came to Canada. And so we came from an upbringing that was very family oriented. I grew up close to York University. I grew up in the Jane and Finch community. I was in the same elementary school my whole life. I went to the same high school my whole life. And then when it came time to go to university, York was the very logical and pragmatic place to be. It's close to home, had great environment, great programs. But in entering York, I felt like I needed to go into university with the clear vision of what I want to be when I grow up. And that absolutely wasn't the case for me. I came in as an undecided major, and then I changed once, and then I ended up in my taking English. And I was going down the path of actually trying to move into education, and I wanted to be a teacher and an educator. So I went through school and had some opportunities to do some job shadowing and get into the environment. And life took me into a different direction. I ended up taking a different path outside of education. But while I was at York, I felt a very familial sense, I would say. I had a sense that there were students that were at York, that it was a collective. Everyone is doing what they can and working really hard to get a better life for themselves or to achieve an objective, or work really hard, and very friendly environment. The teachers and the professors and the staff were just really lovely. And I think going in, I watched a lot of movies and thought university was going to be a very different experience, a lot of frat parties, and it'll be this whole thing. And it wasn't that at all. But I actually really felt a sense of community at York, and was really kind of, it stuck with me in terms of York gave me the room to acknowledge and understand that I actually really love to learn. Maybe doing the projects and the studying and the reading and the writing, that maybe I wasn't so great at 100% of the time, but it actually allowed me to learn new things, learn from different people, receive diverse kind of points of view. And I really enjoyed my time at York. So I've tried to keep in touch with York throughout my career. I've kind of gone back to York and have done some courses at Schulich, and stay really close and come back and speak to graduates once in a while. So I really enjoyed the community.
Thanks so much, Lena. One of the things that you said about coming in and not being sure, you started off in English and now you're at Metrolinx. Could you tell us about that path, being willing to take a path, to go with a path? Could you tell us about that?
So you're absolutely right. So I was going into the field of education, but I found that after I finished university, I wanted to kind of take a minute and actually just explore if the path was the right path for me. And so I I weaved through some roles and ended up in the telecommunications industry, where I kind of was working on the customer side of the business. And then from there, I went into an engineering firm. And I was able to be exposed to the world of engineering and building and structural specifically. And then from there, I got moved into the transportation environment, which I had very little familiarity when I entered, I have to say, in Toronto, in Ontario. There wasn't a lot of transportation investment building. It was, things were just how they are. And so it was a bit of a risk to jump into a little bit of a startup organization. But where I am right now, Metrolinx is an $80 billion business, which is responsible for GO Transit, Up Express, Presto. Metrolinx is building the subway program in Toronto, the Eglinton Crosstown, Yonge North Extension, Finch, and I'm sure a few more that I'm forgetting. But it's a very dynamic environment and industry. And I think the thing that I've pulled from my education at York was really being able to work in an environment with a lot of experts and a lot of skilled workers, and stringing the pieces of the storyline together, being able to provide strategic overview, being able to provide some governance and insights. And so indirectly, but directly as well, I took my learnings from York and was able to apply it to my career, although it was a very different path that I thought I would be going down. It was really, I'm able to tie the learnings that I had into my career today. And it helped me develop, I would say, a little bit more of the soft skills that I still use. So how to communicate effectively, negotiations, problem solving skills, critical thinking. In English, it was a lot of, read this and tell me what you think of X. And I use that today when I'm positioning commercial negotiations and, sitting across the table and negotiating positions. So there's a lot of little nuggets that you're probably not even aware that you're getting right now while you're in school that you absolutely will use later in your career, for sure.
Thank you so much, Lena. I'm watching the heads, all the nods around the room. Could you tell us a little bit about what role mentoring played in your career?
Mentoring, I would say, played a really large role in my career, but the first step for me was actually understanding what mentorship meant. And I think at first I thought mentorship was going to be, okay, so I have a mentor and they're gonna walk me into a boardroom and say, give this person a job, she's great. And that's what I thought mentorship was, actually. But as I actually went through it, I realized there's two kind of people or things, mentors and sponsors. And what I actually was thinking about was sponsors. Mentors, I found in my career, were people that I trusted, that I could call on to ask questions, to get their advice, to get their perspectives in life. And so I've gone through my career using my mentors, and I have several of them. I mentor several people, but it's really to use them as a sounding board. And mentors don't have to be people in executive positions or people who are working in a particular environment. At first, before I actually jumped into management roles, my mentor was my now mother-in-law, but at the time she was my boyfriend's mom who worked an executive role. And I would call her and say, I have an interview coming up, like, help me prepare. Or, I have this problem here, what would you do? And I learned so much from that initial experience. And I didn't know at the time that that was indirectly mentorship, but that is what actually helped kind of guide me down and get into a space of feeling confident. And that's what mentors are, I feel. there to do. Other people might have different opinions of that, but that's been my experience. I've also had, on the flip side, like really great professional executive mentors. And again, it's not always it's pretty tidy in this arrangement that we have here, but mine are fairly informal. So I'll use my boss as an example, who's the CEO. And, you know, if we're going in between meetings and we're on the train and we're chatting, it's a little, hey, here's a little coaching moment, or, hey, how did you think that went? What would you do differently if, you know, we're going through this conversation again? And those conversations are, in fact, mentorship. So I use mentorship, I would say, in my life very regularly, but it's not so defined. And it's really a resource and people who you trust, who you're able to kind of have open conversations with.
Okay, thanks, Lena. So with that in mind, what interested you about this program? Why did you want to be a mentor in our Advancing Women in LANPS program?
So I was, when I spoke to Manib at first, he kind of brought this to my attention. I was so excited about this program, and for a few reasons. One, when I was in university, maybe it's because I kind of had my head down and I wasn't really looking around, but I didn't feel like there were a lot of resources available to me for me to kind of extend my reach and get to know the community around me. You're either in class with someone or you're not. And that was kind of the extent of how I would get to know people or network throughout school. So this is like a very specific well-designed, I would say, program for people to kind of connect and get to know one another. And I thought it was really important to be a part of that, because I remember from my time at university, I thought, you know, people who have their regular full-time jobs, like they have it together. They knew what they were doing when they were in university, and they went and they got it. And in fact, my experience was there was a lot of testing, a lot of, I'm going to try this out. That didn't really work out for me. I'm going to go down this road now. And it was not a straight and narrow road. It was very much a weaving type of trial and error. And so I wanted to make sure that that I was able to kind of provide my perspective of how I've kind of moved throughout my career to date to others. I also think, as an Arab woman, it's incredibly important to have an honest conversation around what it means like to be a woman in the working environment, and having really open conversations about challenges, things you need to be kind of prepared for, provide advice from other women who might have gone through similar circumstances or things. And I think it's incredibly, they're very powerful lessons that you get just from speaking to other people who might be in similar situations. And then I think, for me, just personally, in my work at Metrolinx, so I've established the Metrolinx Women's Network, which is a network for women in the transportation and infrastructure industry, which was traditionally, I would say, a fairly male-dominated industry. And a lot of what we've heard in the origins of the group is, you know, people won't hear my ideas, and I'm the only woman in the room. And how do I get someone to kind of pay attention to my suggestions? So it started off as that, and it's evolved, and we've actually done, I'm pretty proud of the work that we've done at our organization, which is actually setting a gender target for women in leadership and meeting that target. So with what was 3 years ago, we had like 23% of women in leadership. We're now at almost 50%. And so that's a lot of work, and that's a dedicated strategic direction that an organization needs to take. And we know that, so there's a statistic I'm sure some of you might have heard, but women tend to apply for a job if they meet 100% of the criteria that's listed and men generally will apply to the same job if they meet 60% of the criteria listed. And so my hope with this program is that in having these honest conversations with other women, that you're able to kind of go in a bit more confident into the workforce than I did, and that you're able to understand that you have a lot of skills that you're bringing to an organization, and how to position those skills, and how to know what you're walking into, and just like rock it. And that's really kind of why I joined this program, and I'm really excited about it. And I have to say, the mentors in this group are incredibly impressive, and all of you who are participants are just, I'm very impressed by the profiles of each of you. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Lena. I think that you speak to the kinds of concerns that our students indicated in their applications for this program. Almost to a person, everyone wanted to change the world, and you have indicated that this is possible. Thank you so much. Can we give a round of virtual and hand applauses, please, for Lena? Thank you.